Don't waste the summer months staring at a screen trying to figure out who accepts your vision insurance. Pearl Vision works with all major vision plans, including iMed. Plus, when you bring in the receipt from your last eye exam, they'll apply up to $150 towards a new pair of glasses. Visit pearlvision.com to find your neighborhood eye care center today. Valid prescription required. Valid at participating locations. Restrictions apply. Taxes extra. See store for details. Ends 10/31/2022. Exams available at the Independent Doctors of Optometry at or next to Pearl Vision. Some doctors employed by Pearl Vision.
Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Unscripted from my studios in Old Hilliard. And really cool day today. We put this together very quickly, but let me just let my guest introduce himself, and then we'll go from there because we got a time crunch. So why don't my guest introduce himself?
Okay. Well, my name is Art Ayris. I'm the CEO of Kingstone Studios. We produce comic books, films, and animation. We're best known for comic books, but this is the first movie under this imprint. I've done another motion picture and I've done another documentary, but this is our first movie under our imprint, Kingstone Studios, and we're very excited about it.
So let's start at the very beginning because you said comic books. Can we talk about comic books? Let's start there, but we do want to get to the film. But let's talk about comic books. That's crazy.
Well, one of the reasons we started the company is there's just been, especially several years ago, there was such a profusion of, manga and, of course, Marvel and DC. Everybody knows about Marvel and DC, but there really was no like Marvel in the faith market. So we really saw that there was an opportunity for us, and we really wanted to get out there. So I hired about 44 artists that all worked with Marvel and DC, and I just really wanted high-end comic books. My vision always was when somebody picked up a Kingstone comic book, it would be no difference between that and Marvel. And so it's a really strong look. And I mean, their name guys have been on name runs with Marvel and DC, Dark Horse, IDW. So anyway, one of the things that just kind of happened organically, and I think definitely know that God's hand was in it, but we ended up creating, it was really wild how this happened, Aaron. I actually was my wife was a television producer and director, but I was a screenwriter. I'd had some success screenwriting. And I had one that was optioned for a major motion picture with big stars in it. And I thought it was going to be my first movie, but we ended up getting the rights back, but it was big time. I was paid a chunk of money for the movie, for the option, had big names to it, but it didn't happen. But in another screenplay that I wrote, won Best TV Movie in Hollywood was the Next Success Contest. And so we made that our first graphic novel. It was called Babylon. It was the story of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar. And that was kind of the genesis, Aaron. And we ended up spending 7 years on this, but we ended up making the most complete graphic adaptation of Scripture. It's called the Kingstone Bible. And so we did that. We got another big graphic novel coming out. And now we're beginning to do some other stuff. We've got some sci-fi that we've done, and we've got a action adventure series is starting, and we also started an educational historic imprint called U.S. Comics. And so I've been real comics centric, but I always felt if we wanted to be the Marvel of the faith market, we had to do comics, film, and animation. And so this was our first film.
So growing up, were you a comic? I have to assume you were a comic book fan, right?
A lot of people ask me that question. Actually, I was more into the sarcastic humor, like Mad magazine.
Oh, you ever the best. Mad and Cracked. I like. My parents hated both of them, but and Mad was a little more edgy than Cracked. But yes, absolutely. My favorite was it Cracked magazine that at the end, at the last page, you could fold the two together and create like it was a picture, but then you could fold it in half and put it together, and it was another one. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway.
I kind of quasi remember that. I was more like a Mad magazine guy, like just the Alfred Newman, crazy, stupid, sarcastic stuff.
So good. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that, but you mentioned it. So let's just hit those links right away. So if I'm interested, well, first of all, can I buy, is this a physical copy? Is this a physical comic book that I can buy, or where do I find everything you just talked about?
Well, you go to kingstonecomics.com to find anything about our comics line. We have a ton of stuff there. We also have a Kingstone Media app. They can just download it off the app, and we, internationally we sell, through our app, and of course here people. And then Kingstone Studios, they can get to the comics, but that's where we have our film and the animation that we're working on. But KingstoneComics.com, KingstoneStudios.com, or now NoVacancyMovie.com.
Love it. And I'm so happy we just talked about Mad and Cracked, because that's the greatest ever. I literally grew up on those. All right. So let's get right into the movie. I just finished watching it last night. First of all, before we get into anything else, where can people find the movie?
It's in theaters on May 9th. Most places are just running it one night through Fathom Events, but we do have locations that are going multiple days because they've been selling out tickets, which is obviously a good thing. But they can go to novacancymovie.com and just click on buy tickets. And if they're in a rural place, there's an option also they can bring it to their church. But we will be streaming it off of, we're talking a lot of distributors right now. So I don't know the end game on the distribution, but we probably will have a TVOD option on KingstoneStudios.com that people can just download the movie at some point.
Awesome. And we'll probably cover this again. So if anybody has deja vu at the end, we'll cover it again. But I just wanted to get it out right at the beginning. So I finished watching the film last night. So this is your first film, right?
No, this is my second movie.
Second movie. Okay. So, but for your Kingstone group, is this the first?
Yes, for Kingstone Studios, this is our first motion picture.
First motion picture. So if I was going to put together my first motion picture and I had the names like T.C. Stallings and Dean Cain, I feel pretty good about where that's going to go. Just a fantastic cast. And it was so interesting. So let's talk about the movie itself. I don't want to give away spoilers, so we probably have to. I guess I have to be careful because I don't want to give away spoilers how it ends. Yeah. But because it really, really ends, I got a little emotional, honestly, at the end. So,
cool.
What went into the story? You are a pastor at the very church that this story is written around. Is that correct?
That I am. I'm executive pastor at First Baptist Leesburg, which is one of the characters in the story. You were talking about the cast, Aaron. Mm-hmm. In Hollywood, there's a 3-star formula. They say you really need to have 3 bankable stars to really sell a movie. It's got, to get good distribution. And the first movie I made was very successful. It won several film festivals. It signed a television deal, but it just did not have big stars in it. And I said, I can't do that again. So after that mistake, and I did a documentary that was about our church. It was very strong. I co-executive produced it, but another great guy that I really liked him. His vision video. But anyway, I felt this story, Aaron, the channel, the ABC affiliate in Orlando, Channel 9, had been over like 8 times to do stories. It was just, we had international people coming and do stories. I thought, well, it's really time to do this as a motion picture, but I didn't want to make the same mistake that I'd done before. Mm-hmm. So I said, so when we began packaging, putting together the movie, I wanted to keep with that Hollywood formula of at least 3 stars, 3 bankable stars. So in May of last year, we signed TC. And then June, we signed Dean. Actually, I had a really good casting director that I'd like. And I had met her and also met the director at a media conference years ahead before this. And we said, hey, I want to do a movie with you guys. And we just enjoyed each other. I think it's important to do stuff with people you like doing it to. Okay.
Right.
Not people that are going to drive you crazy.
Right.
But anyway, we had fun doing the movie, but in June we hired Dean, and that actually was in his agency. There was somebody else I was trying to hire, but she wasn't available. But the agent said, hey, Dean Cain's available. I said, well, so we ended up negotiating a deal with him. The challenge in casting the movie actually was the female lead. The casting director said, Art, you've got something highly unusual here. You've got a lead for a female in her 50s and 60s. Those are just not like everyday type movies in Hollywood. Right. She said, you will have a strong response. And she knew what she was talking about because we had 1,400 ladies that applied for this lead role.
Wow.
And Aaron, I'm going to tell you, the top 30 of them blew my mind. They were all like, I said, you got to be kidding me. This is a little movie. We're getting these big name people that were, very successful actresses. So anyway, we wrestled with it. And about 7 weeks before we started shooting, we hired Sean Young, and it was the best decision, man. She was just she was great. I was nervous because I'm kind of a small town guy, and
Right.
these big time people coming in here. But she was
Right.
just a total joy to work with, man.
So does she really use a flip phone?
In the movie, she did. Yeah.
Was that intentional? Was that a time period piece? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I couldn't
time
get away
period,
from
yeah.
the fact. Okay, because she throughout the movie, just spoiler alert, she uses a Motorola Razr phone, and I was like, wow, she's using a flip phone. So anyway, that has nothing to do with the movie. I just it caught my eye. I can't imagine what it's like to work with that kind of a team because there's a lot of talent there. So that's really interesting, the backstory. So how does, and I have to ask you this, so you get, I think you said 1,500 candidates and then the top 30. How do you, I'm just fascinated to find this out. How do you interview and like, what is that process? Is it like American Idol? Do they come in? Do you meet with them? How does that work?
The first movie I cast at Universal in Orlando had a place, I can't remember the name of it, but they had a place at Universal Studios Orlando that we leased, and we brought the actors and actresses in. Of course, with COVID, it totally changed things. And so we had, here at Kingstone Studios, we had a room, we got a screen, and everything was done online. They would send their resumes, and then we could listen to, we would get together, and I didn't cast the movie by myself. There's a casting director, and my wife is an editor with Kingstone, and she's a former television producer and director, and then we had other people. And so I just got a lot of eyeballs on this. I said, okay, who fits the best thing? And I will say also, Aaron, I'm super happy with the casting in the movie.
Yeah,
even the ones that were the lesser roles, I just felt that they fit.
Agreed.
Because obviously I knew a lot of the real people, and they did a good job of playing the real people. Right. But it was a very, Aaron, how do I put it? It was a very thorough process of going through those actors, and you can kind of make off a really rough cut, but then when you begin making those fine cuts, you get down to those last two or three, you can really wrestle. Right. And again, after I'd made a mistake of not doing the right talent before, not having bigger talent, this one I want to, even though my first movie, I loved everybody that was in it. They were great actors and they did a good job. But with this, I wanted to make sure I just nailed everything, and it just was a little bit more helpful.
So one of the things, and I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of the movie without giving away teasers. But one of my favorite parts. So at the end of the movie, there was during the credits. That was one of my favorite parts was seeing the real person, because this is a true story. So yes. you had the real person sitting across the table from a coffee, from an actor, and they're having coffee or whatever. I loved that as a viewer. I love that because now it made it really real. Like, I mean, you always hear inspired by a true story, seen by a true story, this is about a true story. But now I got to really feel that connection. How cool was that to have, as you said, you cast these people, and I think you did a great job of casting them based on just the very piece that we saw. Yeah,
thank you for saying that, Aaron. But we hear that people just love that. We've screened it for influencers. We just like a week ago we did it in Oregon for a group of leaders in Oregon, and they just, matter of fact, I'll try to remember to email you if you can give me your email after this. But I'll email you this interview afterwards, and they did not know it was a true story, and they came unglued when they found it was a true story. But yeah, that Orlando Sentinel writer who actually broke the story, literally when she put that thing out, she said, "This pastor is trying to buy a motel. You guys can help support this." And I mean, there were so many moving moments in this, and you kind of take a while to build up the tension and get to that point, but especially kind of the payoff. You know what I'm talking about at the end when the people 100%. Become, coming in. That is legit. Really? That is legit. Yeah. Now I did throw in the motorcycle gang. That's a fictional piece, but literally 95% of that is true. That bank did do that. Wow. That church did do that. Wow. I mean, it was just amazing what God did. And anyway, I just, thanks for saying that. To me, that's a very meaningful payoff as well. Yeah, no, it was great. And I was going to ask you, without giving away, again, we don't want to give teasers. So
I was going to ask you how much of that was real, so you just answered that question for us. So let's tell everybody, because if anybody's listening to this, what this movie is about. Actually, I'll let you tell it because it's your baby. This is your project, but it is a movie worth watching. And I have a story to tell you that I want to make sure we get in.
Yes.
Actually, let me start there. I have a
Yes.
friend in high school that was everybody's All-American. And he ended up. I'm going to make it as short as I can. He ended up falling
we can
into.
We can go 40 minutes. We can go 40, 45 minutes. I'm okay.
I really appreciate that because
No problem.
he was everybody's All-American. Literally, he was the guy everybody wanted to be. He had a full ride scholarship to a college, a D1 college.
Wow.
But he found himself in a situation where he got caught up in a lot of bad things. And we would connect, and there's an even more amazing story. It's a movie in itself, honestly. But anyway, we connected many years later. As luck would have it, I ran into him in Maryland. We were from Cleveland, Ohio. We ran into each other in Maryland. Literally, he was a bus boy, and he was burned out, and he was life just took a hold of him. We got connected. We stayed connected. He moved to Miami, and then we helped him. My wife and I bought him a bus ticket to go to Miami because he wanted to go to a shelter, get clean, and get his first job.
Oh, wow.
Really incredible. But what has happened since then is he's in a system now. So he goes in. What he does is, as far as I know, even today, he's homeless. He panhandles, but he knows if he does something, he'll get arrested, get a free meal, a free night stay, probably a shower, whatever you get at the local prison, and they cut you loose because they're too full. So I've watched this friend of mine. It's a sad story currently, and I hope it ends well. I really do. But anyway, I was connected with this film because of my friend Sean, and
Wow.
right. So this church that you're a part of, true story, wanted to buy this hotel, and I'll let you pick it up from there. But I just wanted to give you that personal connection of
Thank you.
I felt
Thank
that,
you.
like I felt that for my friend from high school. And I still have a burden for him. And I hope one day he finds some place like what you all created. So I'll let you take it from there.
No, that's powerful, Aaron. When you were saying that, I'm thinking of a guy very similar to that. Very similar to that here in Leesburg. He's dead now. But,
Right.
well, one of the things I think, and kind of give you a preview, the issue, a lot of the homelessness, as we both know, is so much connected to drug use and mental health issues and that kind of stuff. And you got to deal with the whole ball. You just can't just deal with one thing. And so we'd already had a very successful men's drug alcohol program. We already had a very successful women's drug alcohol program. So we're already, we were kind of veterans, so to speak. But there was a need for families, and it was a glaring need, especially in 2008. And one of the things that is mentioned in the movie is that what city are you in, Aaron?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, you're in Columbus, Ohio.
Mhm.
Our area, Ohio was hit hard during the recession as well. Our area was hit very hard. Florida had the highest unemployment rate in the nation. And then our county in the state had the highest unemployment rate. So literally we're sitting on the pinnacle of the unemployment problem. And there were just families just right and left. And we said, hey, we got to do something, but we weren't in a position to do it. So we had to, God stretched our faith quite a bit on that. But
Yes.
anyway, the story, I felt like you got to tell a story, you got to have a story, really to be commercially successful. So basically a jaded reporter is demoted to a rural news station. And as she begin covering this little local news, she uncovers a story about, she meets this drug addict, a recovering drug addict, as she uncovers a story about this church trying to buy a motel. And so these three lives is basically like three separate stories and how theirs are intertwined. And then they wind together, at the end. And again, it's all based on a true story.
Wow. Based on a God story. That's what I think I appreciate the most is no matter where you are, whether you connect with addiction, whether you connect with homelessness, whether you connect with, even if you're just a member of your local church, there was so much there that I really grasped onto. Yeah, I'm a guy that just took a leap of faith. I started my own business. And there are days when it's like, God, I don't know what I'm doing here. I appreciated Dean Cain's words and probably the true story words of faith. Like, I think in the film, they talk about the church being underwater financially a little bit, and yet they're trying to buy this hotel and the challenges that came with that. As a guy that's trying to grow a business, I appreciated so much that challenge of, faith. It was just so, I don't know. I really appreciated that. And like you said, there's multiple stories going on there. TC's story throughout the movie is very powerful, very powerful. And
it is powerful. And that guy, he was a friend of mine, and he was a friend of the pastor that's actually in the movie. And, one day, we were friends. He was just a great guy. He loved life. He went through some tough times, but one day I sat there and I said, Cecil, just tell me your story. We sat in my office. I just got a pen and paper. And as he told me a story, man, it just had motion picture written all over it.
Right.
And I also saw that, all the things that God did. So to me, this movie is a very powerful testimony of what God did in one little small town in Florida.
Right. Right. And so Cecil passed. Did I see that at the end? That Cecil hopefully that wasn't a spoiler. I might have just given away a spoiler. I'm sorry. I'll edit that out.
That's okay.
If that's not okay, Art.
That's okay.
But he passed. It sounds like he battled cancer. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm. Yeah.
But,
Well, it was.
He had suffered everything. He'd suffered racism. He had suffered fatherlessness. He had suffered, homeless. He had just been through so much. But he was such a joyful Christian, such a joyful person. I remember one day we were sitting in my office, and he had started this, in which we kind of allude to in the movie, but he started this lawn business. And one day he came into my office. He said, "Hey, Pastor," he said, "I paid off my house." I said, "Cecil, you're in better financial shape than I am."
Seriously, right? And so gosh, I'm trying to navigate without giving away the movie. Is what happened at the dealership true?
Yes, that's true.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So you got to see the movie. Hopefully we're giving enough teasers that people will see the movie. So to take it back to the beginning, where do I see the movie? How do I do that again? So if I know it's showing in
Columbus, if they go to novacancymovie.com,
okay.
Wherever people are in America, they can see where they can do it. And then, if they're not in a city or they're not near a theater, then they can pick it up at, they still go to novacancymovie.com, and there's an option to bring it to their church. And then probably June 10th, they can stream it on KingstoneStudios.com.
KingstoneStudios.com. Okay. And what's next for you? Do you have more projects in the work?
Oh, you know that now. That's like me asking you, do you have more projects in the works?
Absolutely.
Yes, of course.
Always. Well, I might have just given you one. So if we want to talk offline about a story about a guy that ended up in Miami, I'd love to tell his story someday. But honestly, I need to know how that movie ends, and I don't, and that breaks my heart for my friend. But anyway, I imagine.
Well, before I talk about what's next, I do want to talk about one thing that I hope this movie helps people. Mm-hmm. I am painfully aware of, believe me, I'm painfully aware, like this week, painfully aware. A good friend of mine, my wife and I, his son just died, and he had an addiction problem. And I just went to the funeral this week.
Wow.
And I was doing a funeral, it was probably been a couple of years ago, but I was doing this funeral at this little funeral home in our little town. And I was going up there, and I was walking in the little side hallway before I would get up and speak. And I saw these flowers on the floor, and I asked the funeral director, I said, "What's this about?" He said, it's a drug overdose, 23-year-old kid or whatever. He said, "That's the 29th we've had so far."
Goodness.
And I'm thinking, this is one little funeral home in one little town. This is an epidemic. So I know that there's a lot of people, maybe it's people listening that are struggling with an addiction. And there's probably family members that have people that are, family members they love that are struggling with addictions. And also churches are trying to scratch their heads. What do we do? We really want to use this movie to say, hey, there is hope. And, until we draw our last breath, there's hope. And I think that life is a gift that God gives us, and we should just live, all that we can. But anyways, we just want to encourage you, and I want to encourage other people that are out there that might listen to it, about who have a dream or a vision, or they have something on their heart they want to do. Is a couple things is just persevere in that. Don't despise the day of small things. I was emailing somebody today to say, just be faithful in your little context, wherever the context that God's got you, be faithful in that, and just see what God does. Because, God gives us all different gifts. He gives us all different opportunities, and just seek to honor the Lord in what you do, and do it with integrity, and believe me, the cream will rise to the surface, and God will take care of people. Because I was telling this lady, because she's kind of like you. She's a radio host, and she's got 2 kids, and acting, want to act and everything. And she said, well, they're working in church productions and other stuff. I said, that's exactly what you want them doing. Okay. I said, that's where I started. Okay. We did these church productions. We did other things. And so you got to kind of, you got to get your whistle wet. You got to do some, you just got to get your knife sharpened a little bit. And so I just encourage people to do. I think that this is an exciting time, Aaron, for media people like yourself and other ones as well, because we have the opportunity now to go direct to people. We're not stuck in that plantation system of distributors and other things. And I think it's an opportunity that, we need to maximize for the Lord.
I think what's so powerful about the film that we can say without giving away teasers is it is a story, and you had a front row seat in now twice. 1, you lived it, and 2, you now get to tell the story of how everything looked lost. I think we can say that. Everything looked lost. Everything looked difficult. There was a lot of reasons why a lot of people could have just said, I'm out. I'm done. I'm giving up. And I think that crosses everything, whether it's sports or a podcast or a business or any of those things. Yeah. People had, for anyone listening, that's why I want you to see the film, is because God is always at work. And that's what was so powerful, whether it's a personal life or a feature film or a church trying to buy a hotel to do the mission work of God. He's always at work. And it's, what I'm saying, I think that's really what my takeaway was, back to what you were just saying. We just have to be faithful in the inputs, and then God controls the outcome. Yes, I agree. I love it. All right. So last time I'll ask you this, because I like to always make sure that we give out the links. No Vacancy. You can find that on, what's the website one more time? NoVacancyMovie.com. That's probably our best hub, right? That's where people are going to find out if it's in a theater near them, or they can stream it, or however they want to do it. Yes. Awesome. This has been so wonderful. I look forward to the film being successful and watching what happens with that. I look forward to catching up with you again on your next projects. I really do. Sounds good, Aaron. Take care, my friend. I'm going to go buy a Mad and a Cracked magazine. Thanks so much, Art. God bless you. Thank you for making the film, my friend. All right, talk soon.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Unscripted podcast with your host, Aaron Conrad. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll see you next time on Unscripted with Aaron Conrad.